is Horror Sucks, podcast where we watch terrible horror movies so you don't have to. And this week, we're telling you why Leprechaun 5 in the Hood sucks. I'm Ashley Atkins, and my voice is shot because I went to a concert last night.
And I'm Carter Rhodes, and we are not filming this in a safe location anymore. Currently, my sister and my dad are both here upstairs, so there might be some background noise.
You annoy me so much when you use the wrong language.
What?
It's recording.
Whatever. How was the concert?
Oh, it was so good.
Mm-hmm.
I went to go see Aurora with Suburban. And when we got there, I went with some friends who were there to see Suburban, and I was there to see Aurora. And we got good spots to see Suburban, like to the point where we were kind of in front of some people like my height. I could see pretty well. And the venue is designed well enough that you can kind of see the stage from anywhere. But then as like gearing up for Aurora, this couple that's somewhat taller than I am moved directly in front of me. I was pretty pissed off. And I'm the type of person at a concert who like is very conscious of short people around me that are shorter than me, because I'm pretty short as I'm 5'2". And if I can't see, you're screwed. Like I feel bad. So like these people move in front of me. I'm pissed off, but I'm like, all right, as long as they don't move, like there's a window directly between their heads. But of course, they constantly are moving to talk to each other, kiss each other, lean on each other.
With their giraffe necks to kiss each other.
Literally, like, come on. I was furious. But then these stupid people in front of me that were too tall were like blocking not only my view, but then there was like two girls that were in front of us that were like directly my height that they were also blocking their views. Like we were like all kind of, we had perfect windows. Right? Like everyone was standing perfectly, that there were windows. They ruined everything and I hate them. That's my rant about tall people.
Tall people are famously selfish. I do agree with that.
Carter's pretty tall.
Long-time listeners might remember that Ashley first specified her height in Scream Part 2, I believe.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did.
So, yeah. It's haunted both of us for quite some time.
We took a picture together with our lovely new shirts, and I tried to use it for a business card. It's comically bad.
Yeah.
I can't.
We'll get you like a stool or something.
We'll have to figure it out. Maybe we'll do a sitting picture.
But that is the perfect transition, speaking of height, to Leprechaun 5 in the Hood.
So excited.
Yeah.
Before we get started, do you want to go over the rules of the road of what's going to happen?
Yes, I would. So what we do here is, first, we're going to give you a plot summary of the movie. There will be spoilers. We are going to give you some fun facts about the movie. We are going to break down exactly what we liked, didn't like, and what we found spooky in a segment that we aptly call The Good, the Bad, and the Spooky. And then we'll give you a more overall explanation of our thoughts on the movie, because sometimes it's not entirely clear if we liked the movie or not, considering that we've dedicated a third of the time to saying what we didn't like about it. And we give our ratings, which is on a 1 to 10 scale, but neither of us know the units or what the other has rated it. So why don't you take us away with the plot?
Excellent. So kind of before I get into the plot, just some general rules. First of all, I've never seen any of the other Leprechaun movies.
Me neither.
Perfect. But just so you know, there is a leprechaun who will kill anyone who takes his gold, and he turns into stone when an amulet is placed over him, and he has a magic flute that when played controls people. Just some general knowledge.
I read the plot of the first 4 so that I wasn't lost, and yeah, that's all you need to know.
Yeah. All right, so we start off with our cold open with Mac Daddy, played by the one and only Ice-T, and a friend. They're in this room full of gold with a leprechaun statue, and they start to steal the gold when Mac Daddy's friend takes an amulet off of the statue, freeing the leprechaun, who then immediately kills the friend.
With an afro pick.
Yes, but Ice-T was paying attention, and he grabs the amulet, throws it back on the leprechaun, makes him a stone, takes all the gold. He's the winner. Then we flash forward to 20 years later, and we have Postmate. No, sorry.
We're not sponsored, by the way.
No. We have Postmaster P, Stray Bullet, and Butch. They are an up-and-coming rap group who are strapped for cash with big dreams. So Stray Bullet arranges a meeting with Mac Daddy, who is now a successful producer. But they don't sign with him because he wants them to be more hardcore, but they're all about spreading, the good word, peace.
Good vibes. They're a moral group
Yeah.
that wants a positive message.
Exactly.
And so when Mac Daddy wants them to rap about killing people or...
slapping their girlfriends around.
Yes.
Exactly. They're like, no, that's not us. Postmaster P stands for deliverer of peace.
Yeah.
Which we can get into that later. So, but they want to go to this contest in Vegas and they need money. So they decide to rob Mac Daddy because he's the bad guy. But doing so, they manage to piss off Mac Daddy, free the leprechaun, and steal the magical flute. So the leprechaun hunts them down and kills anyone who comes in contact with the group. And
as he tries to recover his gold.
Yeah, he's looking for his gold. And while on the run, he's going to be Post from now on.
Yes.
But Postmaster P, aka Post, discovers the powers of the flute and that it hypnotizes people. So the leprechaun finds them there. He wreaks some havoc. They set him on fire, which allows them to escape, and they seek sanctuary in a church. And the pastor is like, what the heck are you guys doing here? But he's like, you know what? The music for today is out. You guys are going to perform for the congregation. And they're like, no. So they do this god-awful rap about how...
Jesus loves me.
But if he doesn't, I'll find a hoe. It's awful. And at first the congregation's like, ugh. But then they just instead of changing it to make it better, they kind of just double down on it and go further but lighter.
But they use the flute. That was an important part.
Oh, yeah, that's true. They use the flute. And then the congregation loves it. And Coolio walks in, which is a fun cameo. But then the leprechaun shows up. They trap him in a safe and leave him with the Reverend. But then he escapes and kills him.
He escapes by summoning what are described as fly girls, which are, I don't know how they're flies. They're definitely women, but they...
So they're cool girls.
Yeah, basically.
The word fly is meant to be cool, but they're...
Are you sure? Because I think they're supposed to be like flies that he summoned from hell to possess these women. Doesn't matter that much.
That is not the impression that I got.
They are cool women, though. They're very cool.
They wear sunglasses, so they have to be cool.
They wear like these awful plastic rimmed,
thick rimmed, smaller style dark sunglasses that you would never see anyone, not even uncool people, wearing them now. So they hide it out at Master P's house, where the leprechaun finds them. And they get into a fight, and the leprechaun gets his magic flute back and uses it to force Stray Bullet to use his own gun against himself. So later that night, the other two boys, Post and Butch, are sad, but they got to get revenge. They're going to go after him, and
he also has the flute.
The leprechaun leaves with the flute, and they want to get the flute back. So Butch, goes to Post and says, hey, I looked it up, and if we use clover, we can use that to kind of stun him, strip him of his magic, and get the flute and be done with it. So they roll a joint with the clover in it, and then they dress up in drag as a disguise to seduce the leprechaun into smoking the joint. Yeah. That's what I want to say. The leprechaun takes the bait, and after 2 hits, it knocks him right out. They find the flute and leave. As they're escaping, Mac Daddy shows up and shoots Butch right away. He wants the magic flute. Post shoots Mac Daddy 3 times, and he goes down. The leprechaun appears and kind of corners Post and is like, I'm going to get the flute. I'm going to kill you. I don't know. He's like taunting him a little bit, and they're kind of going back and forth with some rhymes. But then Post is like, well, what about Mac Daddy? And the leprechaun's like, I'm not stupid enough to fall for that. And of course, Ice-T comes out.
He goes, what about Mac Daddy behind you?
Yeah.
Like every 4th grader ever.
And Mac Daddy grabs a chair and hits him right over the back of the head and
full on WWE, like, anyway, from the top rope. the Bone Crusher. And he knocks him out.
Yeah, he knocks him out. Well, I would say knocks him out. He distracts him. So then the leprechaun kills Mac Daddy. And he had the amulet, and it gets thrown into the air. And the last shot we kind of see before going to the end scene is the amulet getting thrown in the air. And our perspective is looking up through the amulet. So the assumption is that it goes over his head. And then we cut to Postmaster P rapping on a stage. There's a fog machine. Doesn't seem like he's really that into it, but he's rapping about how he's the king and he's the best and he made it big time, yada, yada, yada. And then it cuts to the leprechaun sitting there with a pair of sunglasses on, going, I taught him everything I know.
And Post pulls his sunglasses down, and you see he has the same glowing eyes as the fly girls we talked about.
Yes. And then the final ending scene is the leprechaun doing a rap about he's evil.
Lep in the hood, I think.
It's a lep in the hood. I do no good. Or whatever. It was really bad.
Yeah. So there's very few interesting facts about this movie.
Really?
Yes. Because it's just not that. It's the fifth Leprechaun movie. Like, everyone had lost interest in the concept at this point.
Then why are there 8?
So, this is the first film in the franchise in which the leprechaun is not killed at the end. It stars Warwick Davis, who played Professor Flitwick from Harry Potter, and Willow from Willow as the leprechaun, and Ice-T as Mac Daddy. None of the other characters had Wikipedia pages.
You're not even going to talk about Ice-T's IMB?
I'm going to get to Ice-T, don't worry.
All right.
So this is the second film in which Warwick Davis plays the titular character, the first being Willow. And when Warwick Davis was 11, his grandmother heard about an opening in Return of the Jedi for someone under 4 feet tall. Since he was a huge Star Wars fan, he applied and got the role, meaning this man's film debut was as Wicket the Ewok in Return of the Jedi.
I love that.
Not Ewok, Wicket. Like, the only Ewok that has a name is Warwick Davis. So,
how old was he then?
I believe he was 11.
Amazing.
So he's been in a crazy amount of movies. He's been in Labyrinth, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Doctor Who, Maleficent, and a million movies in between that just weren't even as cool as those. So he is the highest grossing supporting actor of all time, obviously excluding cameos because like a billionaire shows up in one and then they win. And it's mainly due to the fact that he's in almost every Star Wars and almost every Harry Potter film, including Solo, Rogue One, the newer movies. And after Warwick Davis was in Return of the Jedi, Mark Hamill himself bought him every Star Wars action figure that he didn't own because Warwick Davis was such a big Star Wars fan.
Wait, I'm gonna cry. That's so sweet.
Yeah, he's the coolest guy ever.
No idea who Warwick Davis. Sorry, I had no idea who Warwick Davis was. I did not realize that this leprechaun man was also Professor Flitwick.
Okay, there's no way that's okay to say. I know what you're saying.
Sorry,
don't worry.
Leprechaun character?
Portrayer?
Actor?
Yeah, sure.
I had no idea. Yeah, that it was also Professor Flitwick.
I believe the term is dwarf.
He's a monster in a horror movie.
Yeah,
okay?
in this instance.
Yes. No, I'm just saying. I meant this character in this movie.
Yes,
was not.
I know. I was just
you
teasing
implied.
You. I was just teasing you. So Ice-T was born as Tracy Marrow, and he received his nickname in high school when he was reading the novels of Iceberg Slim, who was a pimp who, after getting out of prison, became a writer. And he liked his book so much that Ice-T memorized the passages and read them out loud, and his friends loved it. So they would tell him, yo, kick some more of that by Ice-T. And that was how he got his nickname, is Ice-T.
I'm obsessed with that. I'm obsessed with Ice-T as it is, but wow.
Yeah. Ice-T has had a very successful acting career. He has a very prominent role on Law & Order SVU. He was the narrator in The Other Guys, but he's also played himself in Sesame Street, Johnny Mnemonic, Frankenpenis, and he played himself in UFC Tap Out, which is a fighting game, which implies that you can fight as Ice-T. I might have to get this game. That sounds pretty cool.
I'm obsessed with that.
The film has a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Scott Weinberg of eFilm Critic gave it 1 out of 5 stars and wrote, "There's simply nothing to recommend here, even a little."
I think Ice-T's character is worth recommending. If you couldn't tell, I'm a huge fan.
Those two aggressively famous people couldn't help but do a good job acting.
Yeah.
But it didn't save the movie.
No.
So, are we ready to talk about The Good?
I believe we are.
Okay. The Good. Dun dun dun.
I'll kick us off. My first point is Ice-T's flawless performance. He
Absolutely.
did wonderful. I loved his character. He fully committed to it. He fit right in. I mostly know him from Law & Order SVU, and it's a very different character, but like it's still, even though he plays these different characters, he still like brings himself to the role, and I absolutely love that about him. He's such a great actor.
He's definitely got a humor that follows him from character to character.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. But my favorite Ice-T scene was when he pulls a switchblade and the mini bat out of his afro in the opening scene to fight the Leprechaun. Incredible. It was so good.
I have that explicitly written in my good list. Is in the beginning, he comes out in an afro and these like high-heeled, just the most 70s things you've ever seen.
It was perfection.
Mm-hmm. Most of the characters in general are pretty good. The main characters, Butch, Post, and Stray Bullet, they're interesting. They're just kids trying to get out of Compton through music. Butch is the nerd of the group, Post is the moral compass, and Stray Bullet is their ambition. And it all combines into a really interesting dynamic with the three of them.
I have to agree. That was my next point to say. Mm-hmm. I really liked them. I thought they were very relatable. We'll say I think this is like the first movie where I have no complaints about the main characters.
Mm-hmm. Post was as the moral compass, he was constantly pushing them to have the positive rap message. And Stray Bullet was the one saying, let's just ditch it. Who cares if we're positive when we're big? And so they had a very interesting kind of group dynamic that was then getting torn apart a little bit. That was interesting. Mm. Post's character arc was pretty interesting in that as he started as the moral compass, he slowly started to become more and more violent in protecting his friends until at the end he shoots Ice-T in somewhat self-defense.
It's more, I think, a revenge shooting than anything else.
So his descent from the moral compass to a killer was very well done.
I agree. Yeah, I really liked these characters. They were funny. They were very relatable. No complaints. It's a first.
Mm-hmm. Same here, yeah.
So the next thing on my good list, I don't have much specifically to say, but I really enjoyed the fact that this was a comedy and a horror movie. I felt, I did feel that it was a little heavier on the comedy. I didn't necessarily hate it. Like I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. Some of the jokes were not great, but
some of them landed really well.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's obsession with Butch being a virgin was so funny. Every single character that met Butch was like, you still a virgin, bro? Like, you have sex yet? That was so funny. Like, there was a grandma who was blind and she like felt his face. She's like, that must be Butch. You have sex yet, Butch?
No, she said, she grabbed him and she was like, oh, Butch, you still a virgin?
Yeah.
That was my favorite scene.
At one point, Butch figures out the clover because he rents a book from the library called Leprechauns for Dummies. When Butch dies, he goes, you think there's pussy in heaven? And then dies. And then when they were talking about being arrested, one of the characters says, I'll see y'all on Judge Judy. Some of the humor was really good.
Some of it lands pretty well. Mm-hmm. There are quite a few misses, but I really did enjoy the fact that for the most part, most of it landed well. Mm-hmm. There were, yeah. No, but I do have Butch being the punchline in my bad. So I felt bad for him.
He was like one of the best defined characters. It's
That's
like, yeah, I
true.
felt bad for him, but he also had the benefit of being everyone's favorite character.
That is
so.
true.
I do, before we move off of the humor,
Yeah.
I liked the Scooby-Doo style jump scare, which really fit with the movie, where they're all leaned against a wall.
So
and
good.
One of them looks to the right, and he looks to the left and goes, I don't see anything. And then Butch next to him turns to the left and goes, he said he doesn't see anything. And Post on the far left turns and goes, he said he doesn't see anything. And the Leprechaun's standing right there. Just straight out of Scooby-Doo.
It was like a good horror moment and a good comedy moment. Like, genuinely, that really does encapsulate the whole movie. It was good.
And then later when the Leprechaun's ramming the door trying to knock it down, so they set up a safe and open the door, and he runs right through and straight into the safe. That was just perfect humor of this movie. Very Scooby-Doo. I loved it.
Yeah. A lot of the humor landed really well. Good prop humor, too. So the other thing I really liked, it's in my good even though it's god-awful, was the church rap.
Oh, God, yeah.
I loved the idea of it. Like, I thought it was super funny that they were going to rap in a church. I didn't love the rap itself, but I thought it was a funny moment, so it's in my good. Yeah. Do you have nothing to add, or is it in your bad?
Well, I have nothing to elaborate on that. I did like, though, at the end, they had a Bollywood-style dance number where the characters are dancing. I liked that. That was good.
Yeah. Do you still have more good?
Yeah, just one more. The flute that they use, the effects on that was really good, where it played extremely faintly the sound of a, like, flute.
Yeah.
But basically all it did was it made all of the background noise be quiet, and all the characters kind of just stopped what they were doing and turned and watched open mouth. So you never really heard the sound, but you could tell that they were all just totally transfixed and spellbound by whatever noise it was making. They tried to record it and they weren't able to. That was pretty well done.
It kind of gave me the feeling of a dog whistle. Even though in some moments we did kind of hear something, but I really liked that we didn't just hear a flute playing. Like, I thought it was a good use of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for.
It was good sound design.
Yeah.
And then I just had, I said I had one last thing, but I really did like that they killed Butch and they killed Post.
Yeah.
And there was no way to see it coming.
You mean, Stray Bullet?
Yeah, sorry. They killed Stray Bullet.
Yeah.
It was just the ultimate, like, I'm pretty good at seeing the framework of plots, and you can tell when they're, like, ramping you up to feel sorry for a character because they're gonna kill them. And there was none of this. Stray Bullet's death was cruel and random, and you couldn't predict it. And same with Butch. I liked that. A lot of horror movies will give certain characters plot armor, and then you'll see it coming a mile away. You'll know everyone but this person's gonna die. This movie didn't have that.
No, I also really enjoyed that. Their deaths came out of nowhere, but they also didn't really, like, hit hard. Like, it didn't stop the movie, which I also really liked. Like, yeah, we acknowledged their death. It was, like, traumatic, but also, like, there's still a lot going on. We need to stay in the moment.
I hate it when movies do that, where it's like, and now it's time for you to feel sad about this character dying. Because unless they nail it and you do feel sad, it's just wasted time.
Yeah. A good example of wanting to feel sad in a movie is when Dewey died in Scream 5. Like, I wanted to take a moment for that. But every other death didn't need a moment in that movie.
That was so frustrating when it's like, and look how sad it is that Judy dies.
yeah, exactly.
Like, man, that sucked.
Yeah.
I guess.
So one of the other things that I also liked was that the villain won. The Leprechaun wins in the end. And I don't know necessarily if I wanted the Leprechaun to win. I just liked the idea that this is the first horror movie we've seen where the bad guy wins. Actually,
a lot of slashers do that.
Yeah, I was going to say Ghost Ship. I think the bad guy kind of won. But
it's actually pretty common for slashers for the bad guy to win. But it's probably the second one that we've reviewed.
That's true. This is the first Leprechaun movie where the Leprechaun wins. So He's a leprechaun. I don't...
No, it's just, yeah, I do agree. It's probably the first Leprechaun movie we've reviewed where the Leprechaun won.
First movie in this series that the leprechaun wins.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes a lot more sense.
Sorry, that's what I was trying to say.
We have seen so few Leprechaun movies starring Warwick Davis that
no,
where he won and got to rap at the end. That's just refreshing to get a change.
I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I guess in Hellraiser the bad guys kind of win. Well, they're not really bad guys. We can cut that out. We went over that.
Just so you know, every time you say we can cut that out,
I know you don't cut it.
A 50-50 chance that I do.
But guess what? I go back through and cut the volume, and when I do that, I also cut the things that I wanted to cut.
No.
Unless it's funny. If it's funny, I leave it.
It's usually pretty funny.
It's semi-funny. The other things I
don't know that people are watching us for our insightful commentary. I think they enjoy as we get more and more unhinged, just downing gluten-free beers throughout the episode.
Are they watching?
Oh my god, stop it!
Then say it correctly!
No!
Yes! Next recording, you have to do a shot every time you say watching or taping.
I do actually like that idea. We could try that, is we do a shot every time.
Every time we mess up a name?
Yeah, I was thinking that. Would that be funny?
That would be hilarious. I gotta get my parents to drop me off. Oh, we gotta do a Friday filming for that, though.
Yeah.
Oh, you got me saying it! I said filming instead of recording. Yeah. I will not convert. Okay. On the contrary. Okay.
So yeah, I am fully seriously pitching the do a shot every time you mess up a name.
New drinking game for listeners as well. Do a shot every time we mess up a name. And Carter says taping or
but then filming. Don't do that because you'll die.
Yeah, please don't.
So I think we're ready to talk about
the bad. So the raps and the rhyming in a lot of places were really bad.
I have the music in general almost. Like they had certain rap. I mentioned in Velvet Buzzsaw that what I liked about the art was it felt like art. It didn't feel like something a prop designer made to fill the background. This movie, the music felt like something someone made to fill the background. They would rap about things like where the chorus was just saying over and over, hit the ground running or do what you gotta do. And it was just so clear that they weren't saying anything. And I understand someone with the capability of writing a good song saying, fuck no, I'm not putting this shit in Leprechaun 5. But it was a bummer that a movie based around music didn't have very interesting music.
I agree. I do feel like they were purposely trying to portray that they were amateur rappers, but it just was so bad. I really didn't like it. But also, like, some of the rhymes the Leprechaun did, I was just like, really? They didn't, not that they didn't land well, they landed fine. It just was unnecessary.
My biggest issue is, let's talk about the Leprechaun in the room. My biggest issue is the Leprechaun. The makeup is terrible. He looks like Jim Carrey's Grinch. It's very clearly the only real parts of his body are his eyes and his mouth, and everything else is like 2 inches of makeup.
It's prosthetic.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously I would say disgusting, but not in like a good fun horror way. Like it's not good. It kind of looks scaly, but also like
unintentionally scaly. It looks almost silly.
Yeah, it does look silly.
He speaks in rhymes, which is a bizarre decision.
Yeah.
Mythologically, I understand why they went with that, because it fits the Leprechaun's vibe, but for a horror villain, it's not scary.
Yeah, he does that throughout the entire franchise. That is one of the things I know.
The concept of the Leprechaun villain in general is like, it's basically a joke idea, but it's just not very funny once you get past the concept of being hunted by a leprechaun. I
feel like some diehard Leprechaun fans who have seen the rest of the series are going to come for us.
They will. So, like, in Cabin in the Woods, you saw that, right?
No.
Really? Oh, wow. Well,
My horror repertoire is almost everything I've watched with you, plus Silent Hill and The Grudge.
ooh, you saw Silent Hill?
That was
Oh,
my first horror movie.
We should watch that. Some of that was good.
I think I own it.
I mean, the bad kind of good.
Yeah, yeah.
The kind of thing we'd review here. So, what was I saying? So, Cabin in the Woods, are you familiar with the concept?
Yes.
So, the idea of Cabin in the Woods are the characters do this. They set these people up in a slasher setting, and then they themselves pick, like, they read a book, which then curses them or whatever. In one scene, everyone's placing bets on what they think the killer's going to be, and they have this big background, or big blackboard behind them, and when you pause it, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen, because it's just a list of all these funny slasher concepts, so it's like, murder hillbillies with chainsaws, mutants, unicorns, mermen, and like I could just read that all day, like werewolves, teen wolf. It just was so funny. Leprechaun is something you'd see on there and think it's funny. It's not something we need a movie about.
I kind of liked the idea of it, but I don't think there's a way to execute it well enough that it would be a good movie ever.
I think there's no way to make it into a slasher.
Yeah.
There's a way to make it as him like a Rumpelstiltskin, almost like just trickster god that causes chaos, but there's no way to make him something that hunts you down and kills you.
I agree with you there.
Mm-hmm. He's also a pretty passive killer in this movie. He kind of just sits around and waits for things to happen.
Yeah, no, I just agree. That's
it's lame.
Yeah.
Every time they blow the flute, he can hear it, and it will cut to him like having sex or something because the leprechaun fucks. Of course he does. And,
why wouldn't he?
And he like hears it, looks up in the air, and then just goes about his day, like smiling as though he knows the plan is happening, but he has no plan.
Yeah, you would think that would be like the cue for him to like take off to try and find him and hunt down the sound, but he just doesn't do anything. And his motivations is to get the flute back, but like he's really not like a driven killer. He's like, yeah, you're in my way, I'll kill you, but first I'm gonna have sex with you.
It was really funny. Apparently this has happened in other movies where he kind of just goes along with it sometimes, like when Fontaine just assumes he wants to have sex and leads him into the bedroom, and he just kind of goes along with it. Yeah. Apparently he, in the first movie, allows a police officer to pull him over in a car, and he's just like, okay. When the grandma makes him food and feeds him, he just kind of allows things to happen to him sometimes.
Yeah! The dream scene where Post is dreaming and the leprechaun shows up to Post's blind grandmother's house. She grabs his hand and is like, oh, you must be one of Post's friends. And then she's like, your hands, they're so dehydrated.
Arthritis-y.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So I gotta feed you.
And then she starts trying to feed him, but she's blind. So it doesn't work.
It's bad, yeah. So that scene, I want to say it was the rare double nightmare, but it's not that rare, so I'm just gonna call it the cursed double nightmare. Post is sleeping on the couch, and he dreams that the leprechaun, is fed by his grandma and then kills her. And then he wakes up, and he opens the door, and it's Mac Daddy, and he shoots him or whatever. And then he wakes up again.
I thought it was Butch covered in blood.
It might be. It's not important.
Yeah, no, it is the infamous double nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate it.
It's not good.
I did like, though, that it was a double nightmare and then a jump scare.
Yeah.
What else? Some pretty weak special effects. I don't have much to elaborate. It's just when some character gets his finger cut off, another character's holding it, and it's clearly, like, darker skin than the rest of his body.
Ice-T gets his finger cut off. Yeah. That's who it was.
That's true. Oh, and then he can't shoot a gun.
Yeah,
because it was his gun finger.
That was pretty funny.
They use his size pretty poorly. Like, they can't make that lumbering killer if he's that small. The game Dead by Daylight does a really good job of this, where they have big killers, and they have small killers, but the small killers are never like, they're never scary that way. They're always faster or quieter. They always do something different that makes you afraid of them for a different reason. But you can't make something smaller than 4 feet, dressed all in green. You can't make it scary by you can't physically intimidate people if they feel like they can punt you across the room, whether or not they're correct in that. And that's why I like the idea of a trickster god movie where he kind of plays with human wishes and monkey's paws them. Because that's a way to be afraid of him, is you're afraid of what he can do without physically being afraid of him.
I feel like there was one scene where they did take advantage of his size, and that was the scene that we really enjoy, where they're all sitting next to each other, because he sneaks up next to them, and he's just like, haha. But then, like, that's the only one.
And it's also because he's fucking with them.
Yeah.
He's clearly just enjoying the panic and chaos.
He is kind of playing that trickster role where he is tormenting them, but he also is a slasher.
Yeah, and that was my biggest, this shouldn't be a slasher movie.
No, but yet there are 8 of them.
Oh my god.
Which I also really want to see Leprechaun back to the hood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, with a 2, which implies it's the second movie in the series when it's the 6th.
It is a direct sequel from this film, but it also establishes a different origin story. So,
oh my god!
Because I did read the Wikipedia article. I read about half of it. I didn't read the end.
I would like to say this is a digression. I'm sorry. Are you finished?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. I keep doing that. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We cut it so it sounds like we just keep stepping on each other's points, but then sometimes we do it in real life. When this movie, it features a majority black cast, except for Warwick Davis, and some side characters. And when the Leprechaun has his amulet removed, the first thing he does is quote Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which I didn't think was particularly tasteful.
I don't think that's tasteful at all.
No, I kind of didn't like that.
I don't like that either.
Hot take. I don't think that.
No, I think that was a poor choice of words. But there was a lot of poor choices made. There was a lot of stereotypes played out, and I'm not going to get into it, but I just really didn't like it. It felt it was unnecessary, and honestly, it was used as a comedic device, and I don't think it succeeded.
Especially with Fontaine,
the
trans character.
That's really what I was...
They were implied to be a prostitute, but whenever they would flirt, as prostitutes are wont to do, constantly the 3 main characters behind their back would be like, ugh, gross.
Yeah.
I bet you want to have sex with them, you gross guy.
Yeah.
And it was very tasteless, cruel almost.
Yeah, no, I think some of the stereotypes they doubled down on were pretty not great. To then be followed up by them dressing in drag as a disguise was not... Which I didn't even think that was actually a bad moment.
No.
I thought they did fine.
But you'd think they would have been a little bit more considerate doing that, though.
Exactly. So, and also with that, too, I felt that they were at times a little raunchy in terms of what they were doing. And not that it's really a major complaint, I just didn't feel like it fit in this weird comedic horror movie.
There's only so many Leprechaun sex scenes before it gets old.
I think less than 1 is enough.
1 just to prove that they can, and that's it. I think the funniest, actually one of the most tense scenes of the movie is when they manage to get up to the Leprechaun's penthouse and they drug him with the marijuana cigarette that had 4-leaf clovers in it. And he's like telling, what's his name? Post, who's dressed in drag, about how he wants a blowjob. And then just slowly starts to tilt over and pass out. But I was like, oh man, Post, you're not gonna do it, are you?
Post was like really committing to his role to get the Leprechaun to smoke this joint, and it was just like, whoa, are you really gonna do this right now? This is your enemy. Yeah.
The cinematography I'll talk more about it a little bit later, but it wasn't unprofessional, but it was bad.
Yeah.
Like, for example, there was one scene in which the three of them, they agree to rob Ice-T. Doesn't matter his name. Let's just call him Ice-T. Let's call him Leonard from Big Bang Theory. So they go to rob Ice-T's house, and Stray Bullet is the ambition one. He says, yeah, let's do this. Butch goes along with him, and it seems like Post is going to bail out because he doesn't want to rob someone. And then the surprise is, like, he comes back. He's not going to leave his friends, which is starting his descent into, I don't know what to call it, being a less good person, I guess. And so he's just walking towards the camera, and it fades to a cut of him a little bit closer to the camera. And then it fades again to a cut of him a little bit close to the camera, and then he's there. It's like a shitty reverse Kurosawa cut. It was bad.
Yeah, it was not good. There also one of the ending scenes where we look up to see the amulet falling over us is also terrible, because it's like you look up, but also like it's kind of black. Half the screen is like, it makes no sense why it's so dark, but then you're looking up at this necklace. I don't know how to describe it. You have to watch it to really see what I mean when I say this, but it was not a good perspective shot.
But that being said, it was bad, but it was clearly made by people who knew how to hold a camera.
Yeah.
This wasn't Sasquatch Hunter's screen is black. It was just a poorly lighted shot that was then moved on to a well-lighted shot.
Yeah.
Because they knew what they were doing. They were just bad at it. Like me and Ashley filming podcasts.
Recording.
Oh my god!
Say it right and I won't correct you.
Fine. Speaking of filming things, there are several shots in which the characters will do something in slow motion and it will cut to something else not in slow motion. Like, for example, the three guys kind of vault over the edge of a building and land in a dumpster to avoid Ice-T shooting at them. And so they'll vault over, it's like, no, and it cuts to Ice-T just like unloading into them in real time, and it cuts back to them slowly falling. It wasn't terrible, it just wasn't very good.
No. So one of the things that I felt is that when they were like running away and going to all these different places that the leprechaun wouldn't find them, felt like they were kind of just running in a circle and they were not going anywhere. Yeah. And that really annoyed the crap out of me, because they'd be like, oh, we're going to go to Fontaine's. Then we're going to go to Post's house. Then we're going to go to Grandma's house. And I was like, why don't you just go somewhere new?
Yeah.
It felt a little kind of almost Scooby-Doo like, where they're just kind of going in a circle and just like, oh, well, we got to reconvene where we started.
Where they got the hallway, and every time they go through a door, they come out a different door.
That's how it felt without doing that. And I hated it. Oh, also, I hated when they set the leprechaun on fire. Speaking of bad shots, when they set the leprechaun on fire and he just kind of spins in slow-mo, but then they're just kind of standing there in real time, but then he's spinning in slow-mo. I did not like it. That was bad.
Most of Hollywood is pretty primitive when it comes to fire special effects.
Fair.
Most of the time... Oh, no, this isn't a defensive movie. I'm just saying. Most of the time, they'll handle it by actually setting someone on fire.
No.
In like fireproof gear and then putting them out.
Wait a minute.
That's not a joke. Most of the time, they'll just set someone on fire and then put
That's
them
insane.
out. They obviously have some level of safety precautions.
Of course, but even still.
But I like to think that Warwick Davis was on fire in that scene is what I'm getting at.
Okay. Oh, I see. Well, yeah. Okay. I feel like I'm going to think that he is not.
I bet money that he wasn't, but I pray every night.
My complaint is not about the fire physically. Mm-hmm. We can see that it is.
It's real fire. He's for sure on fire.
You can tell yourself that. Yeah. We can see that it's something else.
Yeah.
But it just was the way it was shot was not good. It's not, my complaint is not of the fire. It was, if he's on fire, why is he spinning in a circle?
Spin, drip, and roll.
Spin, drip, and roll? Interesting.
No, spin, drip, and row. Rule. Spin, drip, and roll. There we go.
There we go. Spin, drip, and roll. I'm really glad you laid into the...
That wasn't a misspeak. I intentionally...
You intentionally did that?
Yeah,
okay,
well,
okay.
I started with, let me replace stop with spin, and I just worked from there.
Okay. The last thing which I forgot to mention when you brought up how bad the Leprechaun was is that I really didn't like his motivations and felt he was really mean. Because I no, but like I did look into the other movies, and you know, one of the biggest complaints of this movie compared to the others was that the Leprechaun was unnecessarily mean. In the other movies, he only kills people who takes his gold. But in this movie, he killed anyone in his path.
Yeah.
He did not care at all. But that's all I have for the bad.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the spooky.
Ooh. I don't have much.
I have very little. I really enjoyed Chow, who was a guy that they sold some of the gold to. Mm-hmm. A pawn shop owner, I think.
Yeah, they tried to sell him a guitar at one point as well.
They tried to sell him a guitar signed by Jimi Hendrix from 1971. When supposedly Jimi Hendrix died in 1970. That seems early. I don't know about that. Race to Google it real quick.
Who can find it first?
I'm slowed down by Hanging by a Moment by Lifehouse.
He died on September 18th, 1970.
Okay, well, I'll just cut it so I sound smart. But
you'll cut that, though.
Anyway, they say, oh, yeah.
You gotta leave that in.
No, I gotta work to make myself seem smart. So they try to sell a guitar signed by Jimi Hendrix, which is dated, which is the funniest part, 1971. And everyone's like, everyone knows Jimi Hendrix died in 1970.
Except for Carter.
Shut up. You didn't know either. You Googled it. So anyway, Chow at one point is like investigating a noise he heard, and we've got the Evil Dead villain cam, except it's from knee height. And like peeking around the shop aisles. And eventually he kind of gives up, but the camera is framed over his shoulder looking at the aisle where we were seeing the point of view from. So you think we're going to see something there. And as he turns around, the leprechaun is there and starts choking him. That was an unexpectedly surprising scene. Granted, he then chokes him and clearly has nowhere near his neck. Like, all 5 fingers are on one side of his neck. But then afterwards, in admittedly some stereotypical idea of what Asian people are like, he had a bunch of sketchy-looking jars with sketchy-looking meat on his shelves. And after the leprechaun got his hand on him, it's panning across those jars, and all of a sudden he's in some of them. That was a gross shot.
It was a gross shot. Interesting. That might have been a shot I was looking away from, which I'm really mad I missed it. So when the guys rob Mac Daddy, free the leprechaun, he kills one of like Mac Daddy's guards, I guess, security guys, and like rips out his insides, and then there's just a hole left. And Ice-T kind of just peeks his head through. It's not really spooky, but it is a little gory, so I'm making the justification that it can go here.
I honestly couldn't decide if I wanted that on my good or bad list.
That's why it doesn't go in either, but it has to be said. So
it's a thing that happened.
Yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's there. And I guess it's gory. It's appropriately gory. Yeah. So I think it goes here. And then I
will say this: the movie was the right amount of gory.
Yeah.
Any more, and it might have seemed over the top. This was enough.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't great production value. So if they went over the top, it would have looked bad.
No, I think they did just enough. Mm-hmm. And then I guess the leprechaun makeup was pretty unsettling. I wouldn't say it was scary.
Not for the right reasons.
No. And I guess that really goes in the bad. I just really struggled to put something here. So that's it. That's all I got.
So I would like to talk about the Joseph D'Estasio Memorial line highlight. Go for it. Which is Butch and Post are in the elevator up to the leprechaun's penthouse, having made their way in drag. Best part of that was that Butch was also in drag. They're just in the elevator, silent, and Butch looks over and goes, "Damn, Post, you look good, for real." And like, I had noticed that when they were dressing up. Post had some pretty smooth calves. I think he shaved.
I think he did too. He looked good. I will say he pulls off a dress very well.
I really didn't think he would look good in blonde, but...
No, he did. They had like a close-up of his face, and I was like, it worked.
Yeah, blonde worked.
I also really loved Butch. Sorry, I want to harp on this scene a little bit more. Butch's dress was straight out of 1980s. It was phenomenal. And then what's funny is like they both really went for it, but Butch went full glam.
Yeah.
He had a like glittery headband, like a rhinestone headband. He had earrings in, like he went full glam. But then he also had these glasses with flashlights.
They never explained that.
I don't know. I feel like there was a scene cut that we knew why he was wearing them. I was pretty pissed off about it. Not enough to
it was after he got his Leprechauns for Dummies book. So maybe they thought that meant he couldn't tell he was human or what, but they just never explained it.
I think maybe it was just to hide from his face, because if the Leprechaun really looked at him, like he didn't have hair covering half of his face, versus the other one, like once he didn't know it was him until he took the wig off.
It was just so funny going from Post, who like clearly shaved, was all ready to pretend to be a woman, and then Butch, who just didn't even shave his mustache, just didn't give a fuck. He's like, whatever.
But he still went all out.
Well, yeah, so his friend didn't feel lonely.
But
friends have each other's backs.
I just love how like Butch was playing the pimp and like because he's like, I got another one for you. Right, yeah. But he definitely looked very pretty.
Yeah. They both were pretty. They were both handsome.
Great scene.
So I have some notes overall. Do you have any?
I mean, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the use of comedy mixed with the gore. My overall impressions were that I feel like some of the scenes that did push the envelope, where the movie was just ridiculous enough to kind of, I wouldn't say hide it, but mask it. And I think it was okay. It's a great movie to put on with friends around.
Absolutely.
And like watch as a group when you're, having like a friend's night in, drinking and having a good time. Like I think it's more of a group watch than a solo watch. Mm-hmm. Would I recommend it? Yeah. And then, I just gonna double down on the fact that I love Ice-T, and this movie just confirmed that for me.
Ice-T, we would love to fly you out to Logan and have you on our show.
Okay, if Ice-T wanted to be on our show, I would cry my eyes out. That would be like, I don't know how to describe how amazing that would be, but I love Law & Order SVU. He's been on 23 seasons of 24, so like obsessed with him.
I would really like to have him bring an episode of Law & Order and tell me why he thinks it's horror, with a can of pepper spray sitting between the three of us.
Why pepper spray?
Because if he can't convince us, we have to spray him, and I'm gonna make you do it.
I can't spray him. I can't use pepper spray.
Why not?
I have asthma.
Just don't breathe in.
Fair.
Anyway, so my notes.
Although, wait, I also can't pepper spray
your
Ice-T.
hero. Yeah, I figured that was your complaint.
I had to put a little more thought into it.
So, the movie is an acceptable production value. It's clearly made by people who know how to make movies. They're just not great at it. There's a lot of bad shots, but they're like normal bad. They're not Sasquatch hunters, what are you doing, man? Bad. Like the fade shots I told you about, there are some scenes where Ice-T is like splashing his face with water to calm down, and it's like 2 straight minutes of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to give a serious review of this movie without the previous movies, because it's not clear what's a joke, what's a running joke, and what's a thing this movie messed up. But I will say that the plot is very simple. There's very little complications. And one of the few good things I have to say about the movie as a whole are the characters are unique, they're distinct, and I enjoyed them. And ultimately, I have to say that this is a silly concept of a movie that was based around humor, but just wasn't terribly funny. I imagine the first Leprechaun must have been good. Part of what I liked about Friday the 13th is, like, it was a respectable franchise that got off the rails and loved it. It was Just, I don't know that even seeing the previous Leprechauns, which started as a joke, could ever get funnier than that initial concept.
So, from what I've read, the initial ones were funny, but like not nearly as unhinged funny as like the last starting with number 3. It kind of goes downhill. Number 4 is really where it just goes off the rails because it's Leprechaun in space.
That's not a joke, by the way.
No, that's not a joke. They, for some reason, take him to space. But then they try to redeem the series with the last 2, which are from 2014 and 2018. They do like a Leprechaun Origins, and that's the first one without Warwick as the Leprechaun. The more recent one is also a little bit more, I think, serious. That's the impressions I got from reading some reviews of the series.
So, I have written down, Leprechaun 5 is like when your friend finds a 4-leaf clover and then my writing trails off. So I have to imagine what I was going to say is Leprechaun 5 is like when your friend finds a 4-leaf clover and you look at it and you're like, oh wow, this looks cool. And then a petal falls away and you realize that they handed you a 3-leaf clover and then another 3-leaf clover where they pulled 2 of the leaves off. Is you're just like, oh, that sounded awesome, and this is meh.
That's exactly how this movie went.
50% of what's in my hand is garbage, and the other 50% is mediocre.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts on why Leprechaun 5 sucks.
Disappointed that you didn't like it a little bit more. I thought you would have loved it.
I'm very harsh. Are we ready for the ratings?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I would like to give it 2 butchered Martin Luther King quotes.
2?
2. I didn't think it was better than Sasquatch
Wow.
Hunters.
Well, that's fair. I thought you would have enjoyed it. I gave it a 7.
What?
I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I just thought it was bad fun. I'm really excited to see the statistical breakdown of like, obviously I'm gonna rate way harder than you, but I'd like to see the breakdown of ratings for the movies I suggest versus the movies you suggest, because I feel like I'm all in on Ghost Ship.
Yeah, you are all in it. I looked at it earlier today and I was like, all right, I'm going to try and base my review kind of based off of like what the other things we've watched. And I was like, okay, I really enjoyed this. I also I wanted to watch this film a second time and I didn't. Mm-hmm. I think if I watched it twice, I would have been a little bit more harsher because it's definitely not worth sitting through twice.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe my ratings are closer rather than a 1 to 10 scale, if they're closer to like
1 to 6?
Like boxing divisions. Because, like, if this movie was a little bit worse and I thought about it on the same level as Sasquatch Hunters, I'd be like, oh, this is really good. So I think in my head I have certain leagues.
It's in a division, yeah.
I think I have Lightweight, which Sasquatch Hunters was in and was terrible in. And for this, I think this was in, like, the league above that, and then mediocre to bad in that. Which makes it sound like I'm saying it's exactly one Martin Luther King quote better than Sasquatch Hunters.
It's not. It's more.
Much better. So I think that's what I'm going to start doing going forward, is I'm going to tell you the division in my rankings. To make things more complicated.
I was going to say, you are way overcomplicating.
The viewers were complaining that we simplify things way too much.
Of course. Yeah, we're so sorry that we made your lives easy.
I can also promise you, every episode from now on will be twice as long.
No, I will not allow it.
Any housekeeping?
Do I have any housekeeping? Oh, yeah, this is our weekly petition to have Dylan Minette on the podcast. I really want to go see Wallows in concert, and I'm slowly trying to convince Carter to go with me. But the tickets are $90, so...
You told me they were $25. Oh, wait, that
was the other band. No, the
Wallows...
For
a second, I thought you were willing to subsidize $70 of my ticket to convince me to go, and I was still on the fence.
Listen, I get it. You're not a fan of the band, but that's also the reason why Dylan Minette's not going to come on our podcast. So start listening.
If we're there,
that's my goal.
Signs that say Dylan Minette, come on our podcast.
My goal is to be like front row in the shirt, throwing the business cards with on the back say, Dylan Minette, please come on our podcast. I'm I've got a plan. It's going to work. I'm going to put my phone number on them. It's going to be great.
All right.
So anyways, if anyone knows Dilmanette, hook us up.
I would just like to say thank you to Jacob, Janelle, Rory, Connor, and anybody else I forgot who have been giving me suggestions. We are doing our best to prioritize your suggestions, but the problem is we have a 2-week delay at best, which means that Janelle, Jacob, and Rory all gave us suggestions within a week, which means that right off the bat, even if you guys were number one priority, that's a 3-week delay.
Yeah, sorry guys. That being said, I'm very excited for Skeleton Key. Later on. We also have our own movies we also want to watch. Like, we still have a list of things. But we do want your suggestions, so please keep giving up.
I like the idea of from here on out we only listen to the movies because they can our audience can only listen to us. So
it's only fair.
Yeah. All right, we've reached the peak unhinged.
Oh, yes, but last housekeeping thing, I do want to say we are recording this on June 2nd, so happy Pride to everyone celebrating. All right.
Okay, so the next movie we'll be reviewing is Skeleton Key, which is a 2005 movie rated PG-13 and recommended to us by Rory. Rory, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm pretty nervous about the fact that it's rated PG-13. Pretty goddamn nervous.
Got a pretty big budget.
But we'll see, because I've been surprised before. So it's available on Hulu, Stars, and Amazon Prime with a premium subscription. YouTube and Google Play and Vudu at a $3.99 cost. So... if y'all care enough, go ahead.
Oh, it's going to be on TV tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to help when they hear it 14 days from now, but...
Well, you know what? I'm doing my best. Okay.
So, check it out with your time machine. And
there you go.
I think that's all we have for this week. Anything else?
That's all I've got.
Horror Sucks is brought to you...
I thought you were going to say Stay Spooky first.
Well...
Stay Spooky goes first, and then we say Horror Sucks brought to you by...
So I guess you guys gotta stay spooky.
Horror Sucks is brought to you by Wild Thing Media. Music and production done by me, and editing done by Carter. Thanks for listening.